Hey guys, Joey here, back with another Zenless Zone video. This time I'll be going through an early CN analysis of Yixuan, the highly anticipated anniversary character. So this video concept was inspired by Mr. Poki's CN analysis. Highly recommend to check him out because he's really good with all the CN analysis of all the Hoyo games. So I decided to take the liberty of continuing what he started because he kind of stopped doing it for Zenless Zone. So I picked out 2 early access CN sources from reputable CN creators. And one thing to take note is that because these are early access content, it's not going to be very in-depth when it comes to the numbers, but it's still detailed enough to understand the CN viewpoint of Yixuan. So these are the 2 CN creators that I've picked up, and I'll leave the link to their sources in the description below. So if you guys are very interested in this type of content, feel free to subscribe. I'll be working on a really highly anticipated Genshin Impact character that's coming out next, so stay tuned for that. And without further ado, let's begin. Now with the introduction of Yixuan comes 3 new game terms. So the first being the Rupture Specialty, which is going to be a class that excels at dealing good damage and taking damage at the same time. And this class deals specifically sheer damage, which is the next term that I'll be talking about later on. So in my opinion, this is going to be like a bruiser type in game design where they're really tanky class but still able to do really good damage. And as seen in Hoyo games, this is going to be like the meta. So in Genshin, there's like Nuvilette and Furina, and in Starvale there's Maide, Castoris, and even the Goat Blade. So this is going to really be the meta of Zenless Zone, unless Zenless Zone decides to implement a mechanic to reduce the agent's max HP from enemy attacks, something like in Epic 7 where there's an injury set. Then the other term is going to be the Sheer Force. And Sheer Force is something that ignores the defense of enemies, which is really strong. Sheer Force scales off on HP and attack, and it's going to be Yixuan's main source of damage dealt. So how it scales off is that her core passive, every 1 point of HP is going to be converted to 0.1 point of Sheer Force. And also exclusively for the Specialty Rupture, part of the attack, which is 30%, is going to be converted into Sheer Force as well. So what the CN infers is that this is going to be the main stats for her damage build, and that's going to be the Sheer Force, crit stats, and the Ether damage bonus. Now the last term is going to be Auric Ink, and this is going to be a special variation of Ether Anomaly, which is also affected by Ether weaknesses and resistance of enemies, and it's going to be able to deal its own Auric Ink anomaly called Auric Ink Corruption. So this draws comparison to Miyabi, where Miyabi has her Ice, Fire and Frost anomaly, except that Yixuan is only able to deal her Auric Ink anomaly. But both her Auric Ink anomaly and Ether anomaly can trigger disorder. Moving on to Yixuan's combat mechanics, this is going to be one of the most complicated characters kits to date in Zenless Zone, and I've decided to just consolidate and summarize the important points from the CN side of her kit, because basically her descriptions are essays out there and it's really long-winded. So I'm just going to take all the important points for you guys to take note. So coming to her basic attack, it's basically going to be a cool looking 6-hit combo, but one thing to take note is that it resets on the 3rd hit animation if you continuously spam the basic attack, as you can see here. Yixuan's energy is going to be unique in the sense that it doesn't use the regular energy compared to the other characters, but she uses a special energy called Adrenaline, and this is tied to another new element called Technique. So both of these have a total of 120 points, and in the case of Adrenaline, there are 2 usages. The first usage being able to cast a first EX special, which is I'll be talking about later on. And then there's going to be the second usage, which enables her special ultimate. So this is what I meant by she's going to be really complicated, as in that she has 2 EX special and 2 ultimates, which I'll cover later on. So what this basically means at a 3:2 ratio is that for every 180 adrenaline consumed, you're going to gain a total of 120 special ultimate energy called Technique. And basically once Technique is full, you're allowed to cast one special ultimate. Yixuan has 3 types of special skill. The first skill being the one without enough adrenaline points. This is going to be a simple press E to deal some damage, but one thing to take note is that it has a built-in perfect dodge if you time it correctly against an enemy attack. So this is basically the same as Evelyn's special skill. Yixuan's first EX special skill, bear in mind that she has 2 EX special skill, is going to cost 40 adrenaline on cast, and this also has 2 variations. So the first variation is when you continuously press the E key to perform a 3-part special animation. So by pressing the first part, you're going to consume a total of 40 adrenaline on cast, and if you press E again, this is going to transition into the second part animation, which is not going to cost any adrenaline at all. But if you press E for the final time and transition to the third part animation, this is going to consume an additional 20 adrenaline, making it a total of 60 adrenaline consumed. Now, if you do the second variation, which is by holding down the E key, this charges up and does more damage than the first variation. And one thing to take note is that when you charge up and you get attacked by an enemy, this will auto parry, and if you continuously hold down the E key, you're going to perform the second and third part of the first variation attacks to the enemy. So this is basically iframing and dealing damage at the same time, which is quite crazy. And speaking about iframing, when you use this first EX special skill and time it correctly, you're able to parry the enemy attacks with assist points, and you're able to perfect dodge without assist points as well. Yixuan's second EX special skill is unique in that it's going to use the whole basic attack in order to trigger the animation. So this is going to cost 40 adrenaline point on cast, and when you hold the basic attack, it's going to spawn a ball and deal damage. And this ball has crowd controlling capabilities by pulling in the enemies. You're going to be able to hold this basic attack for up to 3 seconds while consuming an additional 20 adrenaline point per second, which is up to 60 adrenaline points. And this also will deal 30 bonus damage against dazed enemies. One thing to take note is that this animation also has a perfect dodge built into it as you hold down and get hit by an enemy. So the CN side is able to find out that you're going to be able to swap cancel all the EX special animation, and there's iframe on basically every single animation. Finally, we're going to come to the most exciting part of every Zenless Zone character kit, and that's going to be the ultimate. So for Yixuan, she's going to be unique in the sense that she has 2 ultimate variations, the normal ultimate and the special ultimate. So her normal ultimate uses 3000 decibels, while the special ultimate will use the 120 technique points that we've talked about just now. So one key thing to note is that the special ultimate will deal less damage and daze, but gives 1 auric blacking point, which I'll be covering right after this. So both ultimates will give 40% crit damage to Yixuan for 15 seconds, and you'll balance out the team HP. Now if both ultimates are available, the special ultimate will be cast first, before the normal ultimate will follow up next. Now this auric blacking point that Yixuan is going to gain when she casts a special ultimate is going to be indicated by this yin-yang symbol next to the technique bar, and this is going to be important for her as it's going to allow her to deal damage by holding the dodge input. So when you hold the dodge input, you're going to enter Vital View, and this is going to cast a large circle field that deals damage, and most importantly, restore 21 adrenaline points for her. Now, this is also going to be considered a basic attack, so this is going to be a big indicator of what we are supposed to prioritize in her skill leveling later on. With Yixuan's kit being very heavily reliant on adrenaline, now we're going to talk about the ways to gain adrenaline. So when you use your auric blacking point, you're going to be able to gain 21 adrenaline points. And also when she starts off in combat, she's going to gain 120 adrenaline right off the bat. Her passive is also going to allow her to gain 2 adrenaline per second. A perfect dodge or assist is also going to give 5 adrenaline each to her. The ultimate from other agents are also going to give 2 adrenaline over 10 seconds, making a total of 20 adrenaline gain. When Yixuan applies Auric Ink Anomaly, it's also going to give her 10 adrenaline. And lastly, when you're using the E key to EX special parry or dodge, she's going to gain 10 adrenaline. Do take note that this doesn't apply to any of the EX special variations with built-in parry or dodge when the enemy attacks. Now for all the expert gamers out there, you guys are going to find this interesting from the CN side. So what they found was that you can actually weave in your perfect dodge, assist, and your EX special parry or dodge to gain more adrenaline. So for example, you can do a perfect dodge into a perfect assist simultaneously, and that's going to give you 10 adrenaline. Or you can even do a perfect dodge and an EX special parry or dodge together, and that will give you 15 adrenaline points. So if you guys have really fast reflexes, you guys can take note of this and putting this into optimizing your gameplay. So with CN's explanation of Yixuan's kit done, we can now take a look at what they think about her attacking sequence. So before the enemy is dazed, you're going to want to gain adrenaline and consume it using the first EX special skill, either variation, and you're also going to want to parry and dodge with the EX special when appropriate. This is going to allow you to consume adrenaline points, which is then converted into the technique points, which allows you to use your special ultimate later on. And if you don't have enough adrenaline with Yixuan, you're just going to want to rotate with your teammates before switching back to her. Now when the enemy is dazed, you're going to want to use your special ultimate when technique is at 120 and your normal ultimate, and then you're going to use this to gain the auric ink point. After which, you're going to use your second EX special skill, which does 30% more damage against the enemies that are dazed. And finally, you're going to cast the dodge, which uses up your black ink point, and this is going to restore 21 adrenaline points back to Yixuan. So this is a very self-sustaining rotation. Now coming to my favorite part of the CN analysis, and that's going to be the min-maxing, which is all about the stats. So for Yixuan's drive disc, she's going to want to use the new 4-piece Yun Tails, which is specialized for her, giving her 10% HP and 4% crit rate out of 3 stacks, which means there's a total of 12% crit rate to be gained, and a 10% sheer damage additional increase at max stacks. So for the 2-piece set, you'll want to use either the branch or the woodpecker, depending on which crit stat you need. For the slot 4, it's going to be either crit rate or crit damage. Slot 5 is going to be ether damage as the first choice, and if you don't have a suitable ether damage piece, you're going to want to use the HP percent as the second choice. For the slot 6, no questions, is going to be the HP percent. For substats priority, you're going to want to prioritize crit stats first, and then followed by HP and then attack. Do take note that pen stats do not help her at all because of how sheer damage works in that it ignores the defense of all enemies. Now for Yixuan's W engine, her signature is obviously going to be her best in slot. It gives her 30% HP, an additional 20% crit rate, while giving her stackable 8% ether damage and also a stackable 10% out and EX special sheer damage. If you're looking at her F2P options, her next best is going to be the new W engine coming out in the same patch as her, which is the Puzzle Sphere. It's going to give her 25% attack, which is decent, but she prefers HP. It's also going to give her 16% crit damage, and if the enemy is below 50% HP, an additional 20% EX special damage is given. So how this compares to her signature is that it's going to be an 82% damage compared to her signature if the enemy is below 50% HP, and a 70% damage without. So what the CN side is thinking is that this is quite a big drop off in damage of around 30%, and it's recommended to pull for her signature W engine. Moving on to Yixuan's skill level priority, you'll want to focus on leveling up the core skills to the max as always, followed by the basic attack, special and ultimate as the main priority, so getting them to the highest level as possible. And afterwards, you can focus on the dodge and assist and leveling them up to a decent enough level. Now for Yixuan's teams, it's not going to be very straightforward because she actually doesn't have a best in slot team as of now. Han Inhu is going to be her best partner for her because he's the only agent to buff sheer force as of now when he uses his EX special skill, which is able to trigger a quick assist back into the previous agent. This is why you want to use him and place him in the front formation in front of Yixuan. Now for Yixuan's third teammate, there isn't a best in slot, and this is due to having some of the redundant support buffers in the form of Nico and Rina. This is because Nico reduces defense of enemies, while Rina increases the pen ratio, which is ignoring a certain amount of defense. And these two are useless for Yixuan because she actually ignores the defense, of all the enemies. So the next best option for her will be the attack buffer, which is Astra Yao or Lucy, or the stun supports like Qingyi and Trigger. But the only issue with this is that their additional abilities will not be activated, which affects a lot of team building in Zenless Zone. So the CN side is saying that Astra Yao together with Yixuan and Paninhu is going to be the premium team, while having Lucy as the other support is going to be the budget team as of now. And I'm going to show a showcase from the CN side. Now going into CN's final thoughts, Yixuan is going to be a definite tier 0 agent in their eyes, which puts her in the highest tier and in the same category as Miyabi. But Miyabi is going to be more comfortable to use. This is because she is able to use her basic attack and hold it just to generate iframe and D-shock damage at the same time. But in comparison, Yixuan requires a higher skill ceiling in order to use, where she needs perfect timing on her EX skill to iframe, and also requires managing of adrenaline points, EX special dodging and parrying. So the general consensus is that she's difficult to play but comes with rewarding gameplay. The next thought that they have is that you should save up for Yixuan's future third teammate agent. So they are speculating that there will be a HP buffer agent to come out in the future and that you should invest into the agent, as Paninhu is the only current agent that is best in slot with her. Now for my own personal thoughts, Yixuan is going to be a must pull. This is because her kit is actually quite broken in my eyes, with so many built-in iframes into her skill and her kit. And the fact that she also does defense ignoring damage is a game changer in any type of combat gameplay. Plus the fact that she's HP scaling means she's also tanky and able to survive longer than the other DPSs. So this makes it such that I don't think that she's going to be as difficult to play as described by the CN side. And with that, we've come to the end of the early CN analysis for Yixuan. I hope that the consolidated findings for these two CN early access content is going to help you guys understand more about Yixuan and make a decision on whether or not to pull for her and her W engine. So thanks for watching and follow me on Twitch. All the best for your Yixuan pulls and take care.